Good evening, everyone. This is Mendy Dabrowski, and you are watching Mondays with Mendy. Every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. here on this channel, we discuss one thing, one topic, one idea, one lesson from the stories of the Torah that can hopefully enhance and provide real, meaningful value to our lives today. So tonight's discussion is called Simon Says. And as I'm sure you're familiar with the game, Simon Says is all about encouraging strict interpretation of directives. Someone gives an order, and the nature of the game is to follow it to the letter. In fact, the one who follows it best and closest to the original instructions wins. Yet in life we find that oftentimes people that aren't able to think for themselves, act, govern, and lead for themselves ultimately end up losing because they no longer are able to coordinate and focus once their leader has moved on. So tonight we're going to talk about how we motivate, encourage, how do we educate people that they can think for themselves. So eventually, even though they may be our best and brightest students, they can go on to be leaders for themselves in their own right, fully functional, fully independent, even once we have stopped teaching them. We have stopped guiding and leading them. The example we're going to use for tonight's discussion is the example of Moses. Moses, as everybody knows, was an amazing leader. Moshe is known throughout history as someone who is capable of taking a generation of people and guiding them from slavery in Egypt to the Promised Land. So we were just talking about Moses. Why is the Exodus from Egypt such a seminal point in our nation's history? And why are so many life lessons learned from how we reacted and ultimately exited from Egypt at that point? The reason is because leaving Egypt was the birth of our nation. First time the Jewish people are referred to as a nation is when they leave Egypt for the very first time. So therefore, we attach a great deal of importance as to that story and how it took place. And essentially, the model of leadership is a model that we learn from Moses taking the Jewish people out of Egypt. So what's the one thing that you and I would do if we left slavery? Just got let out of slavery, been there for 200-something years, we're free. What do? We party, that's right. It's true. That's what the Jewish people did. After they left slavery, they left Egypt, under Moses' direction, they partied. But their form of partying wasn't through boozing it up and inebriating themselves. True. They partied by singing. They sang. They sang an amazing, amazing song that was a tribute and thanks to God for the incredible miracles he had just done for them. And who led them in this song? Who led the choir? The leader, Moses. The text says, Moses and the children of Israel sang a song to God, and they said, I shall sing to God, for he is exalted. Horse and rider he cast into the sea, but God is my strength and song. He is my salvation. And it goes on and on and on. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song. It's known as the Song at the Sea. And when we read it in the temples on Shabbat, which we'll do this Saturday afternoon, this song is sung to a special tune. And everyone in the temple rises when they read it because it has such significance, such meaning, even though it's just a song. And it's never been on top of the Billboard charts. Doesn't matter. In our book, it's number one. And the entire week, the entire Shabbat, the entire reading is known as the reading of the song. There are 44 verses in the song that go into elaborate detail about God taking us out of Egypt and ultimately bringing us to the Promised Land to give us the Torah and so on and so forth. And it's a beautiful, beautiful tribute to all the wonders that Hashem provided for the Jewish people then, and frankly continues to provide for us till this very day. But here's the question. You have approximately 3 million people, men, women, and children, 3 million people, and it says all the people sang the song with Moses. How is that possible? When did he teach them the song? When did they have time to learn it and practice and coordinate? Doesn't mention any of that in the Torah. All it says is that the Jewish people crossed the Red Sea after it split on dry land. They get to the other side. They see that Pharaoh and the Egyptians have been drowned in the water. They celebrate. They sing this song together. Are we missing something? No, it doesn't say anything like that over here. I mean, usually when God intervenes, he says so. Here, I'm going to bring this plague, frogs, locusts. Here it says all of a sudden, Az Yashir Moshe. Behold, Moshe and the people of the Jewish people are going to sing a song. What happened? How is it that they all of a sudden all joined together to sing this beautiful song? So, different commentaries explain different interpretations of this text, but one thing is obvious, that there was tremendous unity. The Jewish people were truly united coming out of Egypt and crossing over the Red Sea, to the point where they actually sang in unison, all 3 million people. As Rabbi Chaim, the son of Moshe, says, the Jewish people sang the song in absolute unity, without difference and separation between them, for they were like one person. This is hinted in the actual verse because it says that, behold, I will sing. Moshe and the Jewish people, but that's obviously more than one person. So how do you say, I will sing? Because even though they were many, they sang as one, connected in their appreciation for what they had just experienced. The heightened state of unity could only be accomplished by Moses, by Moshe, the head and leader of the generation, who was inextricably linked to all of the people. As it says that Moses was Israel, the children of Israel, and the children of Israel were Moses. Therefore, since Moses initiated this song, he starts singing this song, automatically everybody was able to join into him because his joy was their joy. And they were so connected and intertwined that when he felt this sense of joy and jubilation, it automatically transferred to the rest of the Jewish people, and everybody joined into the song. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scene. I can imagine a Hollywood production having millions of extras standing out there, and Charlton Heston is up there, and he's got his staff, and he doesn't have tablets yet. He's got his staff, the sea is split, and in his deep baritone voice, he starts emitting this beautiful, beautiful song, and everyone just responds, ah. It sounds lovely. It sounds truly, truly lovely. But that's not it. We don't let you get away with such a simple story. So the rabbis go into great detail. They have something they want to understand. What does it mean that the Jewish people sang the song together with Moses? Did Moses sing the song and then they said another line after him? Or maybe Moses sang the song and they said, we agree, Moses. Or maybe Moses just started them off and then they sang the rest. This is the source of a huge debate. And we're going to see in just a few minutes that this debate is not semantics. It actually reflects 3 different perspectives on leadership. 3 different qualities of leadership. So here's what these rabbis are arguing. You'd imagine that they have nothing better to argue about than this. But lo and behold, this is where they center their debates. And don't worry, all the important stuff, They argue about that too.
10 rabbis, 12 opinions.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I would say that some rabbis just simply do it for it to be devil's advocate. You're going to take that position? All right, I'll take the other one. So here's the first one. Rabbi Akiva, the famed Rabbi Akiva, who only started learning when he was 40 years old, he says the following: when the Jewish people ascended from the sea, they set their sights on reciting a song. What happened? It was like an adult leading the Hallel prayer. Moshe said, I shall sing to God, and the people said, I shall sing to God. Moshe said, he's exalted above the arrogant. They said, I shall sing to God. And so on and so forth. So Rabbi Akiva takes the position that they simply said, we agree. Moshe said a stanza, a beautiful stanza from the song. They said, we agree, praises God. Moshe said another stanza from the song. We agree, praises God. Like a chorus. Moshe sang each stanza, and they were the chorus. They provided the chorus. That is Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi number 2, says, no, I can't agree. That would be too simple. Then we'd have to go home early. He says, I have a different opinion. He says that they recited the song in the manner of someone leading the congregation, stanza after the cantor. So sometimes during our prayers, I'll say a stanza, everybody repeats after me. I'll say another stanza, everybody repeats after me. So therefore he says, Moshe said a stanza, and they said, I shall sing to God. When he said that God is exalted above the arrogant, they said, God is exalted above the arrogant. They simply repeated each stanza right after Moses. Okay, everyone clear so far? Number 3 is Rabbi Nehemiah. Rabbi Nehemiah comes along, he says, no. You're both wrong. You're both wrong. Here's how it happened. They recited the song in the manner of the cantor who leads the prayer of Shema. Typically, how does a cantor lead the prayer of Shema? He starts off the Shema prayer, and then everybody follows suit and says the entire prayer. And that's what happened. Moses started off this beautiful song, Az Yashir Moshe, Uvinei Yisrael, and then all of a sudden, whoop, all of the Jewish people started to continue to sing the song just by themselves, in unison. 3 million people.
Right. I have a question. How did everybody hear that Moses started singing?
It's a good question.
There's 3 million people. You can't get 30 people to be quiet when somebody starts to die.
Well, you know, when I think crossing the sea on dry land has this effect on people. It somehow, I think it brings...
I don't care how loud his voice is. You can't get it to 3 million people all at once.
You're right. You're right.
Not without modern technology.
I'm not saying that it happened all at once. Maybe he started singing, and it ultimately inspired everyone behind him, and they started singing, and they heard it, and they heard it, and they heard it, and they heard it. So it might have taken a little while, but eventually, it's possible. You don't need to be... You don't need a miracle for that. For that, you don't need a miracle. It echoed and resonated across the group of people. But here's what's even more amazing about that. Here's what's even more amazing about that. According to the first 2 opinions, Moses says a paragraph, they said, yeah, we agree. Or Moses says a line, they repeat the line. Here, they're not repeating after Moses. How did they know which song to sing?
That's what Karen just said. How did they all know the words?
That's right. The answer is that they were all motivated to sing the same thing. The same way that you and your sister might be so linked and so connected that you simply would respond the same way to your dad's request, or you might celebrate the same way, because you know each other so well and you're so similar. The Jewish people were so connected and in the zone, as we said before, that they simply started to sing from their hearts in exactly the same way. That was the point of connection that they experienced. It wasn't divine intervention, wasn't any special miracle, none of that. It was very simple. They all experienced the same event, and being that they were so connected through this tremendous experience, they all responded in exactly the same fashion, with exactly the same words. Which I have seen happen. Maybe not on that scale, but you'll see sometimes on televisions when a tremendous calamity or disaster happens and people are interviewed. Oftentimes you'll see a similarity between the interviews because the event that's taken place is so major and so amazing that the response has a certain unity to it. But this was above and beyond the sheer scope of people. So the rabbis say, the song is like a praise that a recipient gives to his benefactor. Jewish people are thanking God for the amazing miracle he's done for them. According to the level of the recipient will be the level at which he praises. Right? So somebody does something for you. If you're a very intelligent guy, then your response, your gift, your show of recognition is a very intelligent response. If you're more of an emotional person, then you respond emotionally. If you're more of a doer, then maybe you build something, you create something. If you're wealthier, you give a nicer show of response. If you're not as wealthy, you give a more meager show of response. Everyone responds according to their position, according to their level. Typically, that's the way we are. But in this case, all of the Jewish people were linked on one level, one plane, because of the amazing event that had just transpired. Brought about a humility. Whether you are of high station or of low station, it was insignificant at this point. All that mattered was that you had just crossed the sea on dry land, and you were now safe from the Egyptians. That's all that mattered. Nothing else mattered. If you were from this tribe, from that tribe, if you were a priestly tribe, all of that was irrelevant. They were one, totally equal. And therefore, their response, their show of thanks, their show of gratitude was also one. One and the same. So where is this distinction between the various rabbis coming from? Is it simply a case of them not having enough to argue about, picking this to dissect? No, of course not. Here's the different distinctions. Rabbi Akiva, the first guy, is basically saying that, in fact, all the Jewish people responded differently to Moses. They were all different levels. Some were feeling it more, some were feeling it less. Therefore, they couldn't agree on how to respond to the song. They couldn't sing in unison. So he takes a different approach. He claims all they could agree on was to say, Amen, we agree. But on exactly what words to use, different Jews felt differently. Rabbi Eliezer, who said, oh, the Jews, they responded stanza by stanza after Moses. He says, you know what? The Jews were coming together. They really were. They were connecting in a way that was never seen before. But they still needed to be guided and told what to do by Moses. They weren't fully independent yet. And so Moses had to say, stanza by stanza, here's how we're going to thank Hashem. And they said, okay. They responded one paragraph after the next. And then finally, Rabbi Nehemiah comes along and he says, no, Jewish people, they didn't need any help from Moses. Moses just started them off. He just gave them the general direction, the general focus, and they hit the ground running. And they all sang together because they were truly connected in one level on one playing field. What is the logic behind these three opinions? Why do we care? I mean, yeah, it's nice to discuss Torah stories and the fact that three rabbis couldn't sleep at night and therefore they had this major argument is beautiful. How is that going to change Artie's life and Karen? How is that going to change our lives? Because these three differing opinions are three differences, different perspectives on how we teach and we educate other people. Three unique forms of leadership. And the three forms of leadership are the way that we raise other leaders, how we raise the next generation, how we touch our family, our friends, our communities. There are three ways in order to do that. This is what they should be teaching by the JLTI, the Jewish Leadership Training Institute, not just taking them out to dinner and lunch and patting them on the back. So, what do you inspire in your leaders? That's the question. Everyone is in a leadership capacity in some way, shape, or form, whether it be, like I said, at home, amongst our families, amongst our friends, amongst our companies, our businesses. We've talked about this before. We all were born to lead in some way. And if we're not currently leading, that just means we haven't found our place yet. But we all have that ability. How do we do that? What kind of relationship do we encourage amongst those that follow us, those that learn from us, those that respect us? Based on that relationship is how you will establish that leader in the future. So choose carefully. Choose carefully. First option is the submissive option. Submissive option. We raise a generation of leaders that have learned how to say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. They submit to whatever we tell them. That's option number one. And yes, it has some major advantages because there's total commitment, total devotion towards the leader. Your followers, your students, they throw away their own ethos, their own personal feelings, and they are totally committed to whatever you tell them. You tell them to jump, they will say, how high? Or they may not, they may just jump. Because that is the way they've been trained and programmed. You have educated them so that they are totally in line with whatever you tell them to do. They don't think twice. And this idea is highlighted in a saying from Ethics of Our Fathers. Fathers, being the Talmudic sages, they wrote that in the times of the men of the great assembly, there was 3 statements made. Be deliberate in judgment, raise up many students, and make a fence around Torah. What does it mean to raise many students? Oh, excuse me. Could I trouble you for a glass of water, Karen? Or Artie? Thank you. What does it mean to raise up many students? A teacher cannot be satisfied with students who merely attend his lecture. They are not students. Thank you. They are an audience. Teacher must seek and develop disciples to whom he is a devoted mentor. So what does it mean to teach? A teacher is not simply someone who transfers information. A teacher is someone that literally changes a person's life. He connects with them on a deep, meaningful level, and he helps guide them and focus them as they move throughout life. That's what a teacher is. And that's step one, submissive. Where this person totally submits themselves to you, opens themselves up to your direction, not just intellectually, but emotionally, and even physically, where to go, what to do, and how to do it. That's teaching number one. And that was the first response, Akiva's response, because he saw Moses' leadership in this light. Moses arrives, he shows the Jewish people what to do, how to do it, and they buy in. They say, Moses, we are sold. Whatever you tell us to do, we will do. And he leads them straight out of Egypt. And when it comes time, after they've left Egypt, they've traveled across the Red Sea, and now it's time to say thank you to God. They say, Moses, just show us how. Show us what to do, and we'll do it. And sure enough, Moses starts singing this beautiful, beautiful song, and they follow right in. Amen. Amen. Yes, it's true. They simply affirm whatever Moses says. They're not trained to think by themselves. They're trained to think like Moses. Moses says something. What do we say? We agree. We agree. No matter what it is. Similar to what I would say is like the U.S. military. They're trained to accept an order and to do it, and not to question why. Simply fall in line and follow suit. This has great rewards, because when you are able to educate someone and have this impact on someone's life to the point where they truly open themselves up to you, you can create tremendous change in that person. Because they've literally committed themselves to your teachings. It gives you a huge opportunity. But the pitfall of such a method of leadership is that when you move on, you're no longer there, you're no longer present, that person is left floundering, trying to figure out what to do from here. Where do we go? We've never been on our own. We have no idea how to think or what to think. So those are the advantages, but also the disadvantages of submissive leadership. Leadership number 2 is, as Rabbi Eliezer said, a follower as a devoted disciple. A devoted disciple. Rabbi Eliezer argued that it's not enough to simply have a group of people following a leader blindly. Totally submissive, totally given over to what the leader says without thinking for themselves. That is not going to work. Eventually, it's going to die out. Either the leader will die out, or the leader will move on, or these people will move away. The relationship will change over time. And when it does, these people will have no direction, as we just said. Therefore, we have to take a different model. You have to take the model of your students have to understand and retain the information. When you teach something to somebody else, make sure they apply it into their lives. Make sure they relate it to themselves. Make sure they think for themselves. And they're able to take what you teach them and turn it and interpret it into their lives. Because if not, if it's simply about your life, and once your life is removed from them, they will have nothing. They will have nothing. So your job, your mission is to say, this is not about me. This is not about Mendy. This is not about Artie. This is about you. This is about you taking the information that I've taught you, that I've given and shared with you, and interpreting it into your life on a regular basis. And it's going to be a different interpretation than mine, because my interpretation is based on my set of circumstances. Then that person can retain that information and its relevancy even after the leader has moved on and moved off, because we now can think for ourselves. We understand it in our words, in our way. That was Rabbi Eliezer's position. What was his position as to how the Jewish people responded in the song? Do you remember?
Repetition.
Stanza by stanza. So they heard what Moses said, they understood what he said, and then they were able to go ahead and repeat it. They didn't simply give them a blanket, yes, whatever you say, Moses, we agree. They ultimately did say the same thing he said, but once they had fully internalized it and ingrained it in their own psyche, then they were able to respond to the same chorus, to the same stanzas. And in fact, this interpretation leads us to mean that when it says raise up many students, what does it mean to say raise up many students? You might think that it means simply to gather a large group of students. So you've got lots and lots of people. No. It means that you have to impart knowledge to this person. You have to educate this individual so well to the point where they are literally raised up, where you take that individual and you teach them how to rise and think for themselves. You inflate that individual, not deflate that, because in the submissive manner, what have you done? You've deflated the individual. You've taken all of the confidence and you've sucked it away. To say, you can't think by yourself. You can think what I think, but you can't think by yourself. Similarly to the way they manage people in a cult. But ultimately not a recipe for success. That is why we encourage every person to have a rabbi. Ethics of Our Father says every person has to have a rabbi. Doesn't say someone that is ignorant needs to have a rabbi. It doesn't say someone that doesn't know how to learn needs to have a rabbi. It doesn't say someone that's a very troubled individual. It says every single person has to establish for themselves a rabbi, a rav. Because a rabbi is not there simply to teach. A rabbi, a teacher, an educator is there to guide, to instruct, to elevate you, to help you think for yourself, make you a more wholesome and healthy individual. That's their job. That's what they're there for. And that every single person needs. Even the rabbi needs a rabbi, because he needs someone to give him that focus and that commitment. And so through this model, the Jewish people experienced all of the miracles. They realized and recognized what Moses was teaching them and telling them. They understood the sheer scope of what God had done for them, and therefore they responded according to Moses' song, saying the same song, stanza by stanza after Moses. That's method number 2. Method number 3 is according to Rabbi Nehemiah. What did Rabbi Nehemiah say? He said, this is not enough. Both forms of leadership are inadequate. Inadequate. Yes, in the first form of leadership, you can create great change, but hey, after the leader passes or moves on, you're stuck. And even in method number 2, where the student becomes not only your student, but even your disciple, and you teach him how to think for himself, and you raise him up, and you build him up, that's wonderful. It's wonderful. Even if you pass, or even if you move on, Mr. Leader, your student will still continue to celebrate and live the ideals that you taught them. But what about when that student passes away? What happens then? Nothing. The chain stops. Chain stops. Have you ever been involved in a multi-level marketing program or a pyramid program where you sell something, right? I guess there's a story there.
It's almost like, who hasn't?
Yeah. They're extremely popular. Well, hey, when they dangle in front of you, for no work, you can get $1,500 a month. Look, here's my check. So the reality is that all of those systems, and they do work for some people, all of those systems are built on, the people that are getting very, very early. But the systems are all built on continuing your chain. That's what they're built on. You finding people that are willing to find other people, which are willing to find other people, and find other people, and so on and so forth. It's not just about selling the product, it's about finding other people that will sell the product. That's how you keep the pyramid going, you keep the marketing going.
So that was really started by Moses.
Sure.
It goes that far back.
Except that this one worked, because all the Jewish people left Egypt rich. So it wasn't just the first few. Everybody got wealthy. But that model really highlights the ultimate in leadership. And that's what Rabbi Nehemiah is saying. The ultimate in leadership is a situation where your teachings, your ideas and philosophies, they never die. They never end. Because the students that you create, the leaders that you build, they become their own leaders. Your students become the next generation's teachers. That's the model. That's the goal. And then they continue to teach your ideals, the ideals that you learned from your teachers, and their students will become leaders, and so on and so forth. And the chain is never ending. And that does truly start from Moses, Artie, and it continues till this very day. Till this very day, when your father sat you down and started to teach you, and you've taught your sons, that chain continues from Moses. And your goal is not that your child will simply grow up and understand what they need to do in life. That's not what you want. You want your child to grow up, start a family, as your kids have, and teach their children the same values. And when you see that, and again, I'm not talking from experience, but I've seen the experience that my parents have had as my kids have grown up, and they've seen how these ideas that they've taught me are now being translated to my children, and that gives them hope and faith that they've left not only students of their philosophies, but leaders and teachers of their philosophy, and that they will continue. for generations to come. That's the goal of leadership. And that's why Rabbi Nehemiah says, when Moses was passing through the Red Sea, after the splitting, seeing this amazing, amazing feat that had just transpired after plagues and all of the wonderful things that led to the Jewish people leaving Egypt. And the Jewish people have seen everything, and they know Moses has taught them to understand, to see the signs, to recognize what is happening in their lives, to appreciate God's involvement. He's educated them. Now they're ready to go. They know what to do. All they need is a little focus, and Moses does that. He starts off the song, and they take it to the next level. They sing it out together, in unison.
So this was before they had the tablets.
Mhm.
Correct?
So was there a problem
Which problem?
with their learning?
What do you mean?
Well, because
They kind of went astray.
yeah,
Oh, they made a lot of mistakes. Well, they went astray after they got the tablets.
right.
And that's
What they learned before.
well, they obviously didn't get that lesson down very well, did they? No, they're not a perfect people by any chance. Just because you're going to establish leaders, they're still going to make mistakes. And in fact, that's one of the interesting things is, as you know, you can give your children everything. You can teach your students everything, and you can see them and know that they were great students, great kids. They've got all the recipes they need for success, all the tools they need to achieve. And yet you know they're going to stumble. They're going to make mistakes. Doesn't mean that you were a faulty teacher. No, that's simply part of life. Moses taught them well. He gave them everything they needed, but they were still going to make mistakes. That's part of the maturation process. And let's be honest, we're still making mistakes 2,000 years later as a people. We still haven't gotten the message. And we've been given lots and lots of teachings and directives and leaders and educators. We've been given amazing miracles over the course of history, time and time again, and we still make plenty of mistakes. So that's not necessarily a reflection of Moses. But the fact that they were able to respond to Moses' inspiration and start singing the song together, that is definitely a reflection of his leadership style. Of the fact that he had brought them to this point and educated them enough to understand and see what the signs mean, what the miracles mean. And that is the ultimate that each person tries to aspire for in leadership. So I'll tell you a story. There was a great man who was known as the Rebbe. The Rebbe was a smart individual, a charismatic individual, and a very passionate individual. And people would oftentimes come by and they would say, I don't understand. Why is it that your followers and your students and the Chabad rabbis all around the world revere you so much? Why is it that they revere you so much? The Rebbe would turn to them and said, I don't understand what you're referring to. He says, they don't revere me. He says, my job is not about me. My job is to make sure that there are leaders in the community. It's not about me. They're looking for a model of leadership. So they found one and they run with it. But I never set that forth as the goal. And in fact, I encourage each one of my rabbis to be as independent and as forward-thinking as possible. Which is why if you look at the movement as a whole, you'll see each rabbi is independent, trying to put his own spin, his own thoughts, his own emotions, his own intellect, his own talents on how he translates Judaism into the 21st century. That's what the Rebbe encouraged. Because the Rebbe understood and knew that when you create leaders, they have to be able to think for themselves. They have to be able to use their own individual talents to create other leaders, and so on and so forth, all in their individual communities. There was a prime minister, an advisor to the prime ministers of Israel. His name was Yehuda Avner. Very, very impressive gentleman. I've had a chance to meet with him a few times here in Tampa. He advised 5 prime ministers in Israel: Golda Meir, Yitzhak Rabin, Menachem Begin, and Shimon Peres. An amazing, amazing man. And he was ambassador for Israel to the United Kingdom, so he speaks a Queen's English. Truly a gifted orator. And he once came by the Rebbe, and he raised this exact question. He says, I don't understand. Explain to me the relationship between a Rebbe and his rabbi that he sent out to a post. Explain it to me. So Rebbe says, my relationship with every Jew is exactly the same. It's exactly the same. Every person is a composite of a wick and a candle. A wick and a piece of wax. Every single Jewish person. They have a soul and they have a body. And I'm here to do one thing and one thing alone. I'm here to help them light up that candle. To merge that wax with that wick and create a flame, create a fire. That's all I'm trying to do. And that's what I encourage the Chabad rabbis stationed all over the world to do. Nothing more, nothing less. And so on. And when you light one candle, that candle can turn around and light another candle, and another candle, and another candle. And that's what leadership is about. It's about lighting one candle, which in turn can light another candle, and so on and so forth. And then you create literally a chain of illumination that's never ending. So this gentleman, Mr. Abner, turned around to the Rebbe and he said, so have you lit my candle? And the Rebbe said, no, I can't light your candle. All I can do is give you the match. You have to light your own candle. And that's what we do. When we educate, when we teach, and when I say we, I mean everyone, you and I and all of our friends and every person in their situation. We're not lighting up people's candles. We can't do that. We can teach, we can educate, we can lead and show people how to take that match and light up their candle. And once they do that, their candle will automatically light up another candle, and so on and so forth. That's the ability that we have. That's the strength that we have. In order to empower somebody, to make someone feel that they have the ability to break from the Simon Says model, because that's the model that we like to follow. It's easy. Simon says, touch your ear, you touch your ear. Simon says, touch your nose, touch your nose. Touch your eye. Simon didn't say so. It's easy. We don't want to have to think for ourselves. But you know where the real difficulty arises from? The real difficulty comes from the fact that we don't believe we can. Most people don't have the confidence to say, I can do this. I can get it done. I need people's help. I need their direction. I need their focus. But then I am strong enough to move to the next step. And the next step after that, until the point where not only can I move to the next step, I could teach others to do the same. That's what's missing. The confidence. Giving people the confidence for them to lead, to be a leader. And if you ask me what the Rebbe really did, that's what he did. He took rabbis. They were just simple people. And he said, you have the confidence to take a community and change it. Recently, I was in New York for our convention. We have an annual convention of all the Chabad rabbis from all over the world. So the keynote address was by the chief rabbi of the United Kingdom, Sir Lord Rabbi Dr. Jonathan Sachs. It's a lot of titles. Yep. So he is not a quote-unquote Chabad person, but he is an observant and very accomplished rabbi and very, very close friend of the Chabad movement and was a close friend of the Rebbe's. So he told us how his relationship started. He was studying in Cambridge. He's a very, very accomplished student. He was actually studying economics. And he started a correspondence with the Rebbe. Someone had said, oh, there's this very intelligent rabbi that lives in New York. You should write him a letter. And he did. And they started to discuss different topics and different issues. And eventually theology became important to him. He started to learn and explore theology. And an opportunity opened up for him to attend rabbinic school, become an ordained rabbi. And he didn't know what to do. He really had enjoyed his theological explorations, and he did appreciate Judaism, but he still had his original ideas of becoming an economist. So he wrote to the Rebbe saying, should I go to rabbinic school? And the Rebbe wrote back to him
Do you want
and highlighted two words, the should and the I. And he switched them around. And that was the Rebbe's response, short and succinct and to the point. And what it taught Rabbi, Sir, Lord, Dr. Jonathan Sacks was not only an answer of, yes, you should go to the rabbinic school and become a rabbi, which he did to great success. But what it taught him most importantly, most of all, was that the answer was there all along. The answer was there in your words, in your mind, in your letter. You just needed to coordinate it. You needed to organize it. But that recipe for success, the ingredients, the tools you needed to be a leader, they've already existed inside of you. I'm not giving them to you. I'm simply bringing out something that already exists inside. That's what a leader does. See, a leader doesn't think that I'm going to create leaders, that I need to tell them how to lead or what to do. A leader believes in the innate, essential potential of a human being, of an individual. Moses believed that these people, these Jewish people, have the ability to recognize God in their lives and to be appreciative for it. So all he knew he had to do was point them in the right direction and they would start to sing the song by themselves. Just like the Rebbe and this rabbi. He knew he had it in him for great things, to become a prominent, respected rabbi, and he truly did become that. Knighted by the Queen of England, an honorary member of the House of Lords. Brilliant scholar. Wrote that book right there that says Torah Studies, the book in black, which is a wonderful, wonderful book. All of that, the Rebbe didn't give that to him. He had it inside of him. God blessed him with that. The Rebbe simply reminded him of what he had. Gave him a little focus. That's what leaders do. They believe in people. They believe in their friends, in their family, in their coworkers, in their community members. They know that they have the potential for greatness there inside of them. All they have to do is bring it to the top. And the rest shines by itself. And when you ingrain that in a human being, they carry it on with them and they teach it to the next generation and the next generation and so on and so forth. And that's how you don't create students, you create leaders. A human being, every human being, is created with a task. A unique task that only that human being can accomplish. There's no quota for how many people God has to create. God knows there's no bean counter up there saying, whoop, we missed one, got to get one more in. Oh, Mendy, that's a half. Better put 2 more in to cover for his deficiencies. It doesn't work that way. We're all created with a very specific task in mind. And we've got to get it done. So when you approach people in your sphere of influence, whatever that sphere might be, you start off knowing this person has tremendous potential. Do you know how I know? How do I know? How do I know that person has tremendous potential? That's it. You were created. And if you were created, you have tremendous potential that you bring to the puzzle. You bring to this world. If not, you would not be standing right here, right now. That's all I need. That's all I need to work with you. I simply have to remind you and show you that you have this tremendous potential inside of you, give you a little focus, build your confidence, and the rest is done. You're on your way. That's how you start leadership. You have to train yourself to think of each individual as an amazing potential. A person that can do so much, that can transform this little part of his universe, a part that no one else can touch. He has skills no one else has, tools we can only dream of. But he needs a little bit of guidance. He needs a pat on the back. He needs an example of leadership, of discipline and focus. No problem. That's what I'm here for. And we all need to raise our hand, because that's what we're all here for. But that is all it takes. If you believe that you're going to go up to an individual and you're going to teach them, they know nothing. They don't know anything. Now I'm going to teach them everything they need to know, and I'm going to take them from nothing and turn them into something. You're not going to get a leader. Maybe you'll get a follower. You'll get a robot. You'll get someone that's submissive. If you're a little bit more successful, maybe eventually they'll learn to think by themselves. Maybe. But you're not going to get a leader that way. You're going to get someone that's enabled, that uses you as a crutch. If you want to develop a leader, if you want to develop someone that can truly lead and inspire others, you have to believe in that person. And they have to know it. They have to know it. And only then do you have the ability to truly raise them up to those heights. So you go back to that original saying that we said in the names of the Talmudic sages, when they said, establish many students. And now you truly understand what they meant. They didn't mean teach a lot of people. They didn't mean take people and make them feel good about themselves and just elevate them, really educate them to a new height. No. Through creating leaders, not just students, they will create leaders, which in turn will create leaders, and so on and so forth. So your quote-unquote students, the people that have learned from you, is unending. It's unending. And that is the recipe for our success. That is why the Jewish people have survived so many trials and tribulations, because we have that quality of leadership and we know how to teach it to our friends and to our family and to our sphere of influence. So if you want to stop the Simon Says, if you've got a parent, a friend, whatever it might be, whoever it might be, wherever it might be, and they simply can't seem to get their head out of their muck, here's how you do it. You believe in them. You know that they have something special, and you help them to see it and understand it. And you help them to understand that they were born to lead other people, to share their unique influence on the world with their other people in their lives. And when you give them that confidence, you have to think that you are giving them the match. And you give somebody a match, everybody knows what to do with the match. You light. You light that candle. We can all do that. We can all give someone a match. So why don't we? Let us all resolve to find somebody in our lives that we can give a match to. We can uplift, we can enable and give confidence to, and create a real leader. And then our impact on each other and on our communities will be truly unending. That concludes tonight's discussion. As always, feel free to send any and all questions, comments, and critiques, especially critiques, to our email, askmendy@gmail.com, askmendy@gmail.com. This Wednesday, we'll be starting our new JLI discussion on financial and election-related issues called Money Matters. As well, this Friday evening, we will be celebrating our first Friday program, Eat, Pray, Love, at 6:30 p.m. at Chabad of South Tampa. Next Monday night, we will discuss a world of difference. What impact do I make? We all make an impact on this world. What is it? And hopefully that will help us create a few more leaders. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.